About Cars, a podcast for car enthusiasts and the people who love them.
Hello, this is The Thing About Cars, recording in Strongbox West in Atlanta as usual. Today around the table we've got
Beka,
Ronny,
Becky,
Ben.
Becky. What happened? You guys had a wreck?
We did. I'm unfortunately probably one of the worst people to ask what happened because I was asleep until we hit someone. But yeah, my husband and I were on a road trip up to New Jersey. We were in the southern half of Virginia when someone decided to take a right turn from the leftmost lane of traffic, cutting across. It was 3 lanes total, so she cut across 2 other lanes. Thanks to some remarkable stunt driving from the husband. We did T-bone her, but it could have been infinitely worse. And then I woke up.
Ronny, is that what happened?
Yeah, so if you want to try and put your imagination caps on, I was traveling in the right lane. It was mildly drizzling, so roads were unfortunately wet. Cruising around 50 miles an hour, and there was an 18-wheeler directly to my left. If you can imagine that the 18-wheeler was a little ahead of me, I was probably right by his gas tank, if you know where a gas tank is on a 18-wheeler.
Yep.
And then ultimately, all I saw was this Honda CR-V appearing from in front of this 18-wheeler out of nowhere. Like, literally, it came out of it sideways. Like, that's how extreme the turn was. I didn't get to see it turning. It was like it was running perpendicular. Like, imagine.
It didn't get clipped by the
18-wheeler, no.
Was she legitimately trying to turn from that lane?
She was trying to turn from the left lane into a gas station on our right.
Did you get the license plate? Can you say it out loud on the air?
So I'll
calling you out.
Was this in the north?
This was actually technically in the south, and this will be part of the story. I'll give it in 2 scenarios because my wife loves the contrast between a stunt driver and the average driver.
Yes.
So the average driver, if anyone else was in it, they would see, oh my God, this car's coming out of nowhere, slam on the brakes, crash into the car, end of story. I had all of about 2.5 to 3 seconds to react. So as soon as I started to see the car peak, I slammed on the brakes and laid on the horn because that's instant reaction for me. Within about 0.7 of a second, I realized I wasn't going to make it. So I had to pitch the car sideways a little bit. I knew I couldn't go left because the 18-wheeler was there. I would have been trapped under the trailer. Both my wife and I would be dead. If I cut to the right, I would have jumped on the curb. I would have been lucky to miss her, but since everything was slick, the car would have glided, and I probably would have hit the front of her car. Or if I missed her by some miracle, I would have had a damaged car with a girl running away that caused my car to be damaged, and then we would have just been stranded in Southern Virginia. So I decided the best opportunity was to crash into her, but I didn't want the airbags to deploy because airbags taste awful for anyone that's been in a wreck.
They smell really bad too.
You'll taste it, and with a big nose like mine, you will smell and taste it for at least 2 weeks. It's awful. So I pitched the car sideways.
I shouldn't laugh. That's
it's funny hindsight because he's here with us. They're both here. They're both okay. So it's funny hindsight.
Yes.
So the pitch kind of worked in my favor. I didn't have to make it work harder than I needed it to thanks to the slick surface. But first thing, protect the wife. Second thing, don't let the airbags deploy. Third thing, scrub off as much speed as you can. Since I had a little bit of angle going, the wheels could still rotate forward, but at the same time, they were fighting against the asphalt, so that scrubbed off a good amount of speed, which that was pure luck. I couldn't control that too well. But making sure I took more of the hit than the wife was a priority to me. But then at the last second, I saw that this girl had a passenger in her vehicle, and I was heading straight for her. So I tried. There's a little steering wheel technique where you can bump it a little bit to help scrub a little bit more speed off as you're locking brakes up. And I managed to T-bone the girl somewhere around 30 to 35 miles an hour right behind the passenger seat. So if I had 5 more miles an hour on my speed, I would have crushed that girl's legs. No questions asked. So we T-boned, we hit, I punted her up on the grass, Her car skipped and slid. Thank God she didn't lock her brakes down, because if she clamped down, when she hit the curb, the car would have flipped.
Yep.
So car jumps up, skips. I pull into the driveway. I managed to weasel in, and then half of me was like, damn it, we wrecked. This sucks. Wife is okay. Okay, cool. Oh, also within the last 2 seconds when I realized, within the last 0.2 of a second of hitting her, I realized my wife wasn't awake yet.
Wait, what?
I have remarkable sleeping powers.
Yeah.
I think that actually trumps mine. Jeez.
So I turn sideways rather than preparing myself for the impact, and I try to lean over to grab my wife to clamp her to the seat to make sure the seatbelt buckle, because seatbelt buckle locking isn't a guaranteed thing. So if it didn't lock, her face was going to smash the dashboard. So as I'm reaching over, she wakes up and she lifts her legs, and right before I can grab her, we hit, and her knees smashed into the dashboard. I'm only halfway over, so my whole body snaps sideways, and my neck, gets some nasty sideways whiplash. Punt the girl up on the grass. I pull over close to the curb and get out of the car to make sure she's not going to go anywhere. I know my wife's fine. And I kind of just put my hands in the air, all pissed off, because in the North, it doesn't matter who you are or how responsible you are for the wreck. People will say it's not their fault, or that they didn't know what happened, or anything along those lines. Fortunately, this girl was an 18-year-old from Massachusetts who was traumatized. And so she immediately started apologizing. She immediately started saying it was her fault. 2 people pulled over that said they saw the whole thing. One guy saying he can't believe she cleared that 18-wheeler because...
Yeah, sheer luck. Good grief.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of a person thinks you can make a drastic right turn from the third lane anyway?
An 18-year-old.
Yeah.
She said they were driving from Massachusetts down to North Carolina, and she said she had driven 10 hours the day before, so I think perhaps she wasn't thinking anything.
Gosh.
So they
That's
were
quite a haul
from
for someone that young.
Massachusetts?
Yes.
Well, hello.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, also,
Ding, ding, ding.
situation of the higher stakes, right? So there was a lot more at stake there, and so the wreck was a lot more damaging, or it shouldn't really have happened at all, but they tried to make a drastic maneuver, a high-stakes maneuver, and they lost the gamble. So, first things first, everyone's okay.
Yes, that's the important part.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
Right.
Didn't crush the girl's legs. I have some whiplash. My wife has a damaged knee and some lower back issues. The doctors are taking care of us. We have an excellent clinic that we go to, Total Healthcare Clinic, non-surgical spine and joint center in Norcross and Roswell. Thank you for taking care of us. Highly recommend them. They're just great people. We lawyered up because we knew their insurance company was going to be difficult. They're just. It's been unfortunate that this process has been going the way it has been. The car was instantly totaled, both our Mazda 3 and the girls.
How'd you end up getting home?
So the tow trucks show up, and the girl is only 18, so she can't rent a car, so she's kind of stranded, and we really didn't care. Our empathy was quite low at that moment because it was literally the worst part of the journey that we could have wrecked. We were at least 3 hours away from any family or any friends. So there was no one to really rescue us, especially with the timeline that we were on. So our car got towed to a place called Hillcrest Garage in the boonies of Virginia.
Yeah, there's no cities. It was Caroline County in Virginia, but as far as I know, it was all a county.
Hillcrest. Weird. Sounds like something out of a Back to the Future movie.
Well, you go there and you think like you're in a post-apocalyptic world. It's literally a cement building with no signage. It's not painted, so it's still cement gray. And there are just holes cut out. There's no like windows. And had it not been daylight, I would have swore up and down that my wife and I were going to die there.
Did you hear banjos?
Not yet.
We were probably okay.
However, a random pickup truck did pull up with 2 good old boys in it, asking the owner of the garage if they could park their truck there so they could go hunting behind their garage. And it's not exactly the kind of place that I would expect, to go hunting. I'll pass around the picture of.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
It's a good-looking building.
The building was heated by a wood-burning stove. There's a little kettle pot in the middle of the waiting room. They threw wood in it, they lit it, and then pipes heated the whole facility.
I love those
things. Those things are actually really good and really efficient, though. I have to say that for them.
But I've only read it in Tolkien books and stuff.
I know people with those. In totally modern houses, they're really efficient and they get out more than a fireplace.
Yeah, like a little bit of wood will heat your entire house.
No kidding.
It'll bake you in there. Yeah. Oh, those things are very
good.
They
make wood heating stoves with catalysts on them that are, you will sweat. It could be well below freezing, and your house will be a sauna.
Yeah, there's a wood burning stove shop in Marietta. I know we've totally gotten off course, but
Ben's going to tell you about deer corn.
Deer corn?
Well, we probably shouldn't just put it in our episode, but because it's way off topic.
It's way off topic, but
I've seen up in Wisconsin these corn stoves. They're about the size of your dishwasher. The combustion chamber in them is about that big. There's a thing that's about the size of a soap dish, in which maybe 3 or 4 kernels of deer corn are burning. There's a hopper on top. You pour your corn in, and there's a motor that times when the kernels drop into the little soap dish, and the thing makes an awesome amount of heat. And this is about a $3,500 piece of equipment, but I asked the guy selling them in the shop they're in how much corn they burn. He said, of course, of a Wisconsin winter, about 2 of those 50-pound bags of deer corn you buy for $5-6 a piece at the gas station.
So $12, and you've heated your house for the winter.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. Shut the front door.
Not a big house, obviously,
right?
And then how much the heat gets into the house is up to you as far as how your distribution works.
So anyway, Ronny escaped the wood burning stove punishment.
Yes. So
sorry.
They left the car there. Enterprise ended up taking us to one of their facilities, which was 30 minutes away from the garage because we were so far in the middle of nowhere. We ended up with this despicable little Ford Fiesta.
I'm so sorry.
Great gas mileage. I was getting like 38 miles per gallon, but the transmission didn't know where it wanted to be. The seats were not very ergonomic. Very poor lower lumbar support. Very bad bolster support. Decent visibility, good handling, balance, all that kind of stuff. Acceleration for what you would expect on a compact car. But gosh, it was not a pleasant long distance vehicle. And so props to Enterprise in the Dulles Airport in Washington D.C. area. They heard our complaints and they actually hooked us up with a free upgrade to a brand new Toyota Camry SE, which my God. It was so sexy. It was such a gorgeous vehicle with such a nice, refined interior.
Yeah?
Instrumentation and paneling was so impressive. Still got 34, 35 miles per gallon on the highway. Great acceleration, great stopping power, good balanced handling. God, Toyota's really doing swell.
They have. I had the same car probably a year ago, and I was pretty impressed by it. It's Camrys have come a little bit of a ways here.
Yeah, and I mean especially if you look at Consumer Reports reliability, Toyota and Lexus have topped the charts again for longevity and just overall reliability.
With the obvious exception of the one that's parked in my driveway.
You have a Camry in your driveway?
No, she's got
a Lexus ES 300. So yes.
Oh,
it's a Camry on steroids.
Yeah,
and her husband is the problem with this car.
Oh well, that you can't fault the car then.
Sure, I
can. All right. Well, I'm sorry you guys had to deal with that, and hopefully the insurance stuff actually wraps up satisfactorily.
It would be great.
Yeah.
They're both here. They're both okay.
That's the important part.
Just visualizing what he was talking about was right out of Final Destination for me. So, and some of the maneuvers that you made, I almost made a comment if it didn't stop your flow that things like bumping the wheel, if Joe Blow tries that, he's probably just going to spin around. So being careful. You did some great maneuvering. Everybody is safe, and that is the big important part.
I think, to everybody's benefit, it would be wise if folks actually took a defensive driving course.
Absolutely.
Even if it's not a performance defensive driving course, right?
Yeah.
So
okay, but these are the same people that have 3 laws to tell them to stay on left hand lane. Still can't stay on the left hand lane.
I know.
Just saying.
I understand. Yes, I get it. All right, so let's move on to the next topic here, which I need to talk about my car.
Yes.
It's my old 2005 Mazda 6S with over 300,000 miles on it now, and it's got a variety of problems that I'm sort of playing with. It's like, do I fix these things or do I spend the same amount of money on its replacement? And there's a part of me that likes the car so much that if I buy a replacement, I might just replace it with the same exact thing. Yes, Becca.
I have to point out we had this exact same conversation with the Volvo a
We
while
did?
back. Should make you buy a new car, and it was the exact same conversation.
Well, what was the
Different-
result of that? Maybe you should write that on a piece of paper, and we can see if it's the same result of.
It came down to basically what is the cost of upkeep on your current car versus the cost of a new car.
Right.
And that took into account repairs.
Right.
Obviously, both have things that would need to be done, oil changes, tires, things like that, cost of the car payment, insurance, gas economy. Those were a lot of the things that we brought up, and it was a side-by-side.
If I recall exactly, wasn't one of the deciding factors on the Volvo the air conditioning issue that was extremely difficult to resolve?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So the reason I didn't get that is because that Volvo S90 had a broken part on it, which we couldn't find a replacement for at all. Anyway,
And you had to remove the entire dashboard if you could, right?
it was like a 14-hour job just to replace the one thing. And so this Mazda doesn't have the same exact problem. Let me give you the laundry list for the Mazda. The Mazda has a hot oil leak, hot leak. It's not putting oil on my garage floor, but I can smell it, and I can smell a lot of it whenever I come to a red light. And it makes my fiance cough, which she's much more sensitive to it than I am. But I don't like the idea that I'm driving around with exhaust, with burning oil fumes getting into the cabin whenever I'm at a red light. It might need a new starter motor. I replaced the battery a couple months ago, but every once in a while I'll start the car and it will go click and nothing happens. Dashboard lights up properly, everything looks fine, and I can actually move the car physically. Like I can put it in park and let the brake go and push it up against the parking pole, and occasionally that will actually jar something within the engine and it'll start up. It needs a new headliner, and that's a $300 expense if I don't do it myself. And I need to fix the front bumper, which I could probably do myself. So of these things, the most expensive piece is the hot oil leak. That is essentially a rebuild, right?
It depends on what's wrong.
Well, I mean, I replaced the valve cover gaskets, and that wasn't it.
Well, see, that's the problem.
So
when
we're
you're
talking-
doing Joe Blow, you
talking
end
farther
up
down.
just replacing one part at a time, just hit and miss.
Well, that's the thing. Are we talking about a complete upper half engine rebuild here, or
It depends on where it's leaking from.
Yeah.
It could be something
Right.
stupid.
it's
though,
an 8 to
is
10
the
hour
thing.
job? So
I'm assuming there's dye for oil. There's dye for everything else.
there is. But, even if I go to eBay and buy an engine of this type, which there are plenty of them out there, because this is the same engine that Ford put in an Aerostar. It's the same engine that they put in, I want to say, a Fusion. So the actual engines are still out there. If I get one rebuilt off the shelf, is it worth it to put that in this car, along with me fixing the bumper, along with myself fixing the headliner and taking care of the starter motor while I'm at it? Is it worth it, or do I just go find somewhere another Mazda 6S off of Craigslist or whatever and drive that?
It's a tough situation to talk about, because the smarter idea always sounds like get another car, but then you really don't know what bag that car is going to come with. You
It
can
could
even
have the same problems.
Oh, yeah.
Well, even beyond that, even if it had the problems that your car has and they were addressed, what's the next list of things that could be wrong? I'll use one of my customers that got a 2002 Lexus LX 470, has 160,000 miles, was always taken care of at the dealer. Phenomenally reliable vehicle in general, based off of a variety of other 4x4 platforms. It's a well-tested and tried and true vehicle. And when it first came to me, the only thing I saw leaking was a little bit of power steering fluid, which was the power steering pump. We replaced that, and we said, okay, you shouldn't have any more problems. Since then, the transmission completely exploded catastrophically. The radiator failed randomly. The belt tensioner failed randomly. Battery alternator failed randomly.
Good grief.
And this is in the course of maybe a year and a half at the most. And there was no predicting any of this.
Yeah.
Everything looked super clean when I had it. It was purchased from a little old lady, so she didn't do anything super conniving as far as we know. and it just started giving up one thing after another. And he got a good deal on it too. So it's hard to say, get another car because you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
So maybe it does make sense to actually do the work on the repairs myself, get the rebuilt engine and stick that in there. Ben, you're about to say?
Well, do you have a diagnosis on where that leak is coming from?
No.
Because a rebuilt engine might be way more repair than you need.
I know it's farther down than the valve cover gaskets. That's all I know.
That leaves a lot open.
I know it's on the left side of the engine as you're looking at it.
I would make that determination before deciding about the whole engine, if it were me.
What are we doing after this?
Well, and left side of the engine, I'm assuming you said you didn't see any drip marks.
Correct.
Why are you determining that it's the left side?
Well, because I can actually see it in the actual engine compartment.
Okay, because sometimes I know things will take strange little paths when going down.
They do, yeah. The starter thing is easy. You can yank that out, take it to a shop, and have them diagnose it. Everything else sounds like an annoyance. The bumper, now, is that the structural bumper or just the plastic skin?
I think it's just a plastic skin.
Duct tape.
Yeah. Don't tempt me, man. I'm sorely tempted to get in there and do it. But.
And actually, depending on, it's been a while since I've seen your bumper. If there are any strange cracks, I have this amazing tool that my friend turned me on to. It is a plastic stapler. And what it is, it's little metal that's kind of like large staples, but it's not punching holes. This tool heats it up and embeds it into the plastic.
That's cool.
And then you would just proceed with various fillers or what have you to disguise it. And I have one of these. So
I'm not opposed to this.
If you keep it and you want to play around with fixing that front bumper, I will more than happily bring my plastic stapler.
And the headliner, oh boy.
That's a whole other topic.
You could just rip the old fabric off, scrub off everything that's going to prevent adhesion, get you a couple cans of 3M77.
Got them already.
Yeah, so then what you do is you take a big piece of whatever suits your fancy, Naugahyde, orange shag carpeting, whatever, just glue that to the ceiling.
Is 3M77 going to provide the insulation from
That's what the thing is I don't have. I have a good layer of neoprene that I was going to stick up there. It's thin neoprene.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't have any foam backing.
What you could do is...
That's okay.
Well, the stuff I've been using in the Lotus, it's 3/16 inch thick closed cell foam polyethylene with a really, really thin aluminum layer on both sides.
Yeah, I know the stuff you're talking about.
Yeah, it has a surface that glue will stick to. It's not foam that will eventually crumble and pull away in the glue. It's super thin, less than a quarter inch thick. Just glue that everywhere up in there. You'll probably have better sonic and thermal insulation than the car had when it was new.
So non-automotive, you're not talking about going to Summit and getting one of their rolls of headliner. This is non-automotive that you're using.
Right, this is an all-purpose insulation.
Because I've looked at the insulation boards at Home Depot and heating them to mold it. Because this automotive one, like you're talking about, too expensive. They still will fall apart.
Can we use this car as part of a pilot video thing? And,
yes.
And let's just knock these things out one weekend at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one weekend we do the headliner, and then we go out for pizza and beer.
Okay.
And then the next weekend we do the brakes, and then we go out for beer and something else. And
as long as there's beer involved.
Always beer.
Pretzels.
Beer.
And
Beer.
Jaeger Schnitzel.
That too.
So I am looking online here. I'm not sure that this is part of the scope of a television show, but an engine assembly with 166,000 miles on it for my car is $850 free shipping.
But it's got 166,000 miles on it, and you don't know.
What year is your Mazda?
It's a 2005 Mazda 6S with the 3-liter engine in it, 3-liter V6 engine. And the prices here range on eBay from right around $850 to upwards of twice as much in some cases.
I think some of those would be rebuilds then, the $1,600 ones.
That would be my guess as well.
Even a rebuild.
And I should just go to Moz World over here, what's that, Mozmart?
Mozmart, yeah.
And ask them if they can get something rebuilt. They might be able to get one.
Maybe so.
But an engine replacement is a full day affair.
Oh, yeah.
At least.
At least.
So that's if you know what you're doing.
Right. Which I don't. I'm going to be like tab A, slot B, kaboom.
Where do these parts go?
What I would recommend, from my professional opinion, if you just get whatever used engine, lower miles the better, but cheap as you can get it. I'll give you an engine stand. I'll loan it out to you. Put it on the stand and just tear it apart. Tear the engine you got apart. You send the heads out to a machine shop. You slowly replace and reseal the engine as you go. and you'll have a fully rebuilt engine for, I don't know, $1,000 or something. Taking the heads to the machine shop, usually you're looking at about $300, $350 to get valve stems done, get it resurfaced, decked, checked, et cetera, et cetera. And then a gasket kit for the top, bottom of the engine, $300 to $400 peak. And then the engine itself, $500. So $1,200, you have a brand new rebuilt engine. And then you can go ahead and pop it in, and you know that your engine is ultimately 0 miles.
Right.
Even if you wanted to, you can take the block to a machine shop, and they'll redo all your bearings, your rod bearings, your main bearings. They'll redo the piston rings, et cetera, et cetera. And that ultimately makes it a 0 mile engine, assuming there's no abnormal cylinder wall wear.
I'm not opposed to paying for a professional to actually do the rebuild on the engine. I would rather have a pair of competent hands do it than my newbie hands.
Well, I can supervise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. I don't want to take advantage of Ronnie's largesse in this matter, but
see, I was going to suggest that you see if there's a corner in his warehouse that you could.
I mean, once I have 4 cars in the shop right now that, God, they're nightmares.
Well, which begs us to another series we've occasionally touched on here. What is in Ronnie's garage right now?
Oh, God. So right now we have a cop car from the movies. It's just a generic 2008 Dodge Charger that was a police interceptor. And the person that owns it is one of the most talented stunt drivers in the community right now, Kevin Waterman, one of the best drivers I know. Really, really great guy. Dropped it off with me, and he got a whole 2010, I believe, Challenger SRT 8 rear end, so subframe, differential, axles, hubs, everything. And as far as we could tell online, it was just an easy pull off, drop out, drop in. Should take about 2 hours. Which I was on track for until I went to go tighten the last subframe bolt. And for whatever reason, Dodge didn't put weld-in nuts for the subframe bolts. Usually, if you're bolting a bolt into the body of a vehicle, the nut will be welded or glued inside of the body so that you don't have to put a wrench on it to tighten a bolt onto it. For some reason, Dodge welded a nut onto a flat piece of metal, and they assumed that flat piece of metal would eventually catch on something inside of the body. Like, I think there are tabs inside that this flat piece of metal would lodge itself against, because you can move the nut around. If you put your finger in the hole, the nut jiggles, like it goes all around. So as I started to tighten it up, whatever tab holds that flat piece of metal in place snapped. And so now it just spins. Every time I try to tighten or loosen the bolt, everything just spins. So now I can't even take the subframe off because I can't access this little plate where the nut is. And I have to cut a hole into the body to get something on this flat piece of metal to just hold it in place. And I've looked on forums and everything. Apparently this is a fairly common issue. Most people get other bolts stuck. I got the magic one that's right next to the fuel tank.
Wow.
Of course.
So using the plasma cutter and Sawzall and all that kind of stuff is really kind of nerve-wracking. But, perseverance and experience, right? So eventually that'll get taken care of.
Right.
I have a Honda S2000, which I just put what's called a putty mod rear differential in about 2 months ago. Really great car. If you are in a position to get a weekend warrior race car, the Honda S2000 is at the top of my list. Best race car you can get for under $20,000. The putty mod is a rebuilt rear differential with taller gearing, so you get a little bit more acceleration. It's built a little bit more solidly, and it's known to be the weak point of the drivetrain. Replaced that 2 months ago, and the customer just came back in saying that his clutch was bad because it was making odd noises. Replaced the clutch. The car has 140,000 miles, so it's about right. And when I slammed it all back together, it's still making a noise, and come to find out, the input shaft bearing is bad on the transmission, so his transmission needs to be rebuilt. So now I have to pull that back down. There's a manual transmission rebuilder I have that does good work that I'll have to get that out to, but that's another 2 weeks of this vendor, this car being down and in the shop with the vendor, kind of hopefully not screwing me over. I've got an E46 M3, the same one that I've had previously. I finally figured out and mapped out the secondary hydraulic brake. It is as clean as it can get as far as I'm concerned. The interior fits completely. I'm just at the last part of piping it up and making the brake fluid flow through the secondary master cylinder. And secondary brake calipers are in, so this car is just about ready to drift, which is exciting. And then the last car I have is actually potentially going to be Becky's replacement car from the wreck, which is a 1999 BMW 323 convertible. Customer just left the car at the shop. It's been there for about 9 months. He couldn't afford the repairs necessary, and so since he's never really paid to keep it there, I think I'm just going to commandeer it. And
you might have to get the title first.
Right. We'll see how that works out. But that's the plan. I'll get my hands on it somehow.
So let's deduct the parking fee from the cost of your car.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So have a couple of things in the shop. Hopefully I can get them all out of the way. I'm allegedly supposed to start on a movie January 7th, so fingers crossed on that. Not allowed to reveal the title, but it will be a very cool and popular movie that I think a lot of people will enjoy. But yeah, that's what's happening in Ronnie's shop.
Excellent. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I mean, I think we are well over time for this particular episode. Let's call it a day. And any housekeeping we need to do real quick, please find us on Patreon. We are still trying to do fundraising to get improved gear so we can make cleaner, better sounding podcasts for you guys.
Find us on Facebook, The Thing About Cars. We would love some feedback. We want to hear from you guys. If there's something you want to hear about, if you have some point of knowledge that you want to share with us, we would love to let our massive, soon-to-be massive audience know what you are thinking.
Well, soon-to-be massive is right. I mean, I think as long as we are being proactive about looking at what doing video work with The Thing About Cars means, let's throw some ideas around, and let's see what kind of suggestions our friends and our listeners can provide to us. What can we possibly do on a video screen that would be fun and interesting to look at? And I think that's it. You guys be safe and have fun out there. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Thing About Cars. We'll see you on the road.